Claire Simmons had made peace with being alone. Or, at least, that's what she told herself every night as she sat curled on her living room recliner, sipping peppermint tea and watching reruns of shows she had seen hundreds of times before. At 63, she was a retired nurse with a modest pension, a grown son who called occasionally, and a life that had settled into silence. But silence has a way of growing teeth. It crept into her mornings, filled her evenings, and whispered reminders that no one was waiting on the other side of the bed, that the house was too quiet, that time was passing, and someone was missing. On a slow Friday night, curiosity tugged at her boredom. Claire joined a dating app that catered to international connections, not because she was naive, not because she didn't know the risks, but because, for once, she wanted to feel chosen. That's when she met Charles. His first message was warm, direct, confident. "Good evening, Claire. My name is Charles. I'm 27 and from Lagos, Nigeria. I hope this doesn't bother you. I just wanted to say, you look elegant, like a woman who's lived and still has so much love to give." She nearly laughed, not out of disbelief, but from the shock of being seen again. He was handsome, chiseled features, a warm smile, skin like polished ebony, and eyes that hinted at ambition. His profile didn't hide who he was. He didn't pretend to be someone else. He was African, proud, and honest about his background. That intrigued Claire more than anything else. Their conversation started slow, messages exchanged throughout the day. Then came voice notes, where his deep, velvety accent wrapped around her name like silk. Then video chats, sometimes interrupted by power outages, but always worth the wait. He called her Queen Claire. "You have no idea what it does to me," he'd whisper, "to talk to a woman with experience. You're strong. You're still beautiful. I see what others are too blind to see." Claire had heard sweet talk before, but never quite like this. Charles didn't make her feel old. He made her feel timeless. He asked about her past, her son, her favorite books, and the scar on her right hand from a bad fall at work years ago. No man had ever asked about that. He noticed everything. Within a month, they were talking every night. She started sending small amounts of money, first to help with data plans, then groceries, then a new phone after his old one suddenly crashed. He never asked aggressively. He always framed it with humility. "Only if you can, my queen." Claire could, so she did. She told herself it wasn't about buying love. It was about investing in something she finally believed in. Soon, they began talking about the future. He told her he wanted to move to America, to build something with her, to cook for her, to kiss her good morning and hold her through the night. And Claire believed it. At her age, she knew fantasy from reality, but this wasn't a scam. Charles was real. She saw him, heard him, trusted him. She even began looking into the fiancé visa process. It felt crazy. It felt wonderful. And it felt like a new chapter. What Claire didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that this story would end not in a wedding, but in blood. Claire had never sent so much money to one person in her life, and yet each transaction felt like a step toward love, not a sacrifice. It started small, $100 for groceries, $50 for a bus ticket, then $200 when Charles said his younger sister had malaria and the hospital refused treatment without payment up front. He didn't ask for it, not outright. He simply said, "I hate feeling like a man who can't protect his family." Claire wired the money that afternoon. By the third month, the transfers became regular. $300 here, $500 there. Charles always promised to pay her back. "I don't want to be a burden to you, Claire," he'd say. "One day I'll take care of you. You won't lift a finger." She believed him, not because she was gullible, but because he never rushed her, never demanded. He always framed it as a need, temporary, urgent, and wrapped in apologies. And he always followed it with affection. "You're not just my queen," he said once over video chat. "You're my reason." Claire started planning for his arrival. She cleaned out the guest room, had new curtains installed, bought a set of luggage for when he gets here. She even contacted an immigration attorney to help guide her through the fiancé visa process. The paperwork was long, the fees were high, but the dream was simple. A second chance at love. Her friends didn't understand. Some were polite but hesitant. Others weren't. "You don't think this is a scam?" her old coworker Sandy asked during brunch one Sunday. "He's 36 years younger than you, Claire." Claire stirred her coffee and smiled. "That's a number. Love doesn't care about math." But at home, doubts began to creep in. Charles had become harder to reach during the day. Some video calls were canceled last minute. He claimed power issues, family emergencies, long hours helping at his cousin's shop. But Claire noticed something different. The warmth in his voice dimmed. The sweetness still came, but only after she sent money. And then, always, came the follow-up. "Claire, I don't know how to say this, but the visa application stalled. We need to pay another $1,200. I'll find a way, but I wanted to tell you." She paid it the same day. Still, the silence that followed haunted her. One night, she stayed up scrolling through their old chats, looking for that spark, that sincerity. But it wasn't the same, and that terrified her. The next morning, Charles finally called. He looked tired, disheveled. "Things are just heavy right now, Claire," he said. "Don't give up on me, please." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I won't." She meant it, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and soon it would bloom into obsession. When Claire saw Charles for the first time at JFK, she felt like every risk had been worth it. He stood tall among the crowd of travelers, wearing the crisp shirt she had mailed him months ago and pulling a scuffed suitcase behind him. His smile stretched wide as he walked toward her, arms open. She barely managed a breath before he wrapped her in a hug that felt like a homecoming. He smelled like travel and cologne. He whispered in her ear, "My queen, you're real." Claire took him home to Charleston like he was royalty. She had fresh linens on the bed, his favorite Nigerian foods stocked in the fridge. She'd driven 3 hours to find the ingredients, and a "Welcome Home" banner hung above the kitchen. But she wanted to do more. She took him shopping the very next day. Macy's, Nike, a new pair of Jordans he'd once pointed out on a call. She bought him a tablet for job applications, 2 new suits, a gold chain he admired through the glass but didn't dare ask for. She bought it anyway. "Claire," he said, stunned, "I don't deserve all this." She touched his face. "You do. You're starting a new life, and I'm proud to be the one helping you." They ate out every night that week. Steakhouses, brunch spots, the beachfront oyster bar she hadn't been to in years. Charles always thanked her, always smiled, always kissed her hand at the end of the night, but he never reached for her in bed. By day 5, Claire noticed how glued he was to his phone, always turned away, always laughing quietly. "Just friends," he said when she asked. She nodded. She didn't want to ruin the moment. On the 6th day, she drove him to a DMV appointment, helped him schedule a Social Security interview, and promised to co-sign on a small apartment once he found part-time work. That night, she handed him a sealed envelope. "Just a little something to help you get started. You've already done so much." Inside, $2,000 in cash. Charles kissed her forehead. "You're not just kind," he said. "You're sacred." She cried in the shower that night. Tears of relief, tears of joy. This was love. Real, tangible, hard-earned love. But when she woke the next morning, Charles was gone. The guest bed was cold. The charger she'd bought him was still plugged into the wall. His phone line was disconnected. His Instagram account deleted. There was no note. No goodbye. Just absence. At first, Claire was frantic. She called hospitals, bus stations, filed a missing persons report. But somewhere, deep in her chest, she knew. He hadn't disappeared. He had left. 3 weeks later, her friend Cassandra texted her a screenshot. Charles standing with another woman, mid-40s, white, slim, polished, smiling in front of a boutique in Atlanta. His arm wrapped around her waist. Claire stared, her pulse thudding in her ears. Caption: finally building the life I deserve with the one who never gave up on me. Claire recognized the gold chain. She had bought it. The woman's name was Ashley Carter, marketing consultant, Buckhead zip code, Tesla, spa memberships, photos of expensive brunches, and luxury resorts. Claire wasn't the dream, she was the ticket. And now that Charles had crossed the border into comfort, he'd stepped over her without hesitation. Claire walked to her computer. She didn't cry, she didn't shake. She searched. Private investigator, Atlanta, Georgia. It was no longer about heartbreak. It was about justice, and Claire was ready to collect. Claire sat at her kitchen table with a mug of untouched coffee, slowly going cold beside her. The blinds were drawn, the lights dim. She hadn't slept in 2 days, not really. She had hired the private investigator on a Friday, a wiry, discreet man named Greg Mathers, based in Atlanta, ex-cop, now working independently. No fluff, no theatrics, just facts. "I'll need 2 weeks," he'd told her. "Give me a name and a photo." She gave him everything. Charles's full name, his Nigerian ID, the visa application, the bank transfer records, photos, voice messages, emails, even screenshots of their conversations. She had documented everything, like a woman clinging to proof that she hadn't imagined it all. Now, 2 weeks later, Greg had sent a file, encrypted, locked, emailed with a simple message. "Got what you need, read it when you're ready." She was never going to be ready, but she opened it anyway. The report was 10 pages long, 10 pages of heartbreak in bullet points. Subject: Charles Okafor. DOB, August 6, 1996. Current status: living with Ashley Carter, 41, in a gated condo complex in Buckhead, Atlanta. Claire's hands trembled as she read the details. Charles had moved in with Ashley 4 days after leaving Claire's home. Ashley had sponsored him for a separate adjustment of status filing through marriage. Financial records showed large transfers from Ashley's accounts to Charles over the past month. Photos of the two shopping for furniture, dining out, and holding hands in Piedmont Park. One photo of them kissing in a grocery store parking lot, Ashley laughing, Charles gripping her waist. "They present publicly as a couple," Greg wrote. "Neighbors believe they've been together for months." Claire's stomach twisted. Months, which meant he had been building this relationship while living in Nigeria, while telling Claire he loved her, while taking her money, while sleeping under her roof. She flipped to the final page, a timeline. Greg had even uncovered the emails Charles exchanged with Ashley months before he ever arrived in the U.S., using another email Claire had never seen. He had been courting Ashley at the same time he was calling Claire his queen. One woman for the visa, one woman for the life. Claire felt something inside her snap, not loudly, not dramatically, but like a rubber band stretched too long. She stood from the table. Her legs were weak, her eyes hollow. She walked to her bedroom, opened her closet, and pulled down the small fireproof lockbox. Inside, receipts, withdrawal slips, Western Union forms, a printed email from her immigration attorney, $21,362. And for what? To be lied to? Used? Erased? No, not this time. Claire picked up her phone and dialed Greg again. When he answered, she didn't waste time. "Can you get me her address?" she asked. "Ashley Carter." There was a pause on the other end. "Claire, I just want to see it," she said, her voice cold. "I just want to see where he lives now." Greg sighed. "Give me a day." She hung up and stared out the window. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was purpose. Claire didn't rush. She booked a modest hotel room in Decatur just outside Atlanta. Nothing fancy, paid in cash, checked in with a small suitcase, the kind that suggested she was visiting family, not gathering evidence. Her demeanor was calm, pleasant, a retired woman on a little trip. But inside her bag, buried beneath her toiletries and a change of clothes, was a manila envelope stuffed with the private investigator's report and a handgun she hadn't held in over 20 years. She hadn't yet decided if she'd use it, but she liked knowing it was there. Greg had delivered the final piece, Ashley Carter's address. A 2-story beige townhouse with white shutters in a gated community just off Roswell Road in Buckhead. The kind of neighborhood with manicured hedges, ring cameras, and golden retrievers. Claire rented a silver Kia Soul and drove by on a Tuesday morning. Traffic was light. The sun was high. She wore sunglasses, a wide-brimmed hat, and a scarf to dull her distinct gray curls. Just another senior citizen going about her day. She parked half a block away and waited. And then, there he was, Charles, wearing the sneakers she had bought him, laughing with Ashley at the curb as they loaded groceries into the back of her SUV. He looked free, relaxed, like a man who had landed exactly where he wanted. Claire watched through the windshield as Ashley leaned in to kiss his cheek. Charles smiled, leaned closer, and kissed her back, passionate, slow, familiar. Her stomach clenched. Ashley said something, and Charles laughed. That laugh. The same one he used when Claire had surprised him with cologne after dinner. The same one he used when she taught him how to use a dishwasher. The same one he used when she handed him the envelope of cash and whispered, "This is for your future." Claire gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She stayed there for almost an hour after they disappeared into the house, just watching the door that swallowed everything she'd given. That night, she returned to the hotel room, turned off her phone, and poured a glass of wine. She stared at the ceiling fan turning above her, slowly spinning, slowly breathing. She hadn't cried, not once since seeing them. She wasn't going to. Instead, she opened the manila envelope, laid out the photos, the transfers, the map of the neighborhood. She drew a little red circle around the house. Then she took the gun from beneath the clothes in her bag, held it, weighed it, not yet, but soon. Claire had always believed revenge was messy, loud, emotional, something that left trails behind. But sitting alone in her hotel room at 6:45 a.m., sipping lukewarm coffee and staring at a hand-drawn floor plan of Ashley Carter's townhouse, she realized revenge, real revenge, was quiet. It came slow, patient, cold. She had driven by the house 5 times in the last 2 days. Same car, same sunglasses, different outfits. She'd memorized the neighborhood routine. Ashley left for work at 8:10 a.m. sharp. Charles usually left later, around 10:30, sometimes not at all. Wednesdays were trash days. Bins lined the curb like chess pieces. Noise was expected. Movement was normal. Most neighbors were either at work or too absorbed in their phones to notice anything beyond their fences. The gun was cleaned and loaded. It rested in her purse, wrapped in a silk scarf. It wasn't rage that made her carry it. It was clarity. She knew Charles wouldn't scream. He was too proud, too smooth. He'd look her in the eye and try to lie. One last time. But she wouldn't give him the chance. Her plan was simple. She would wait until Ashley left. Knock on the door around 9:00 a.m. Just after breakfast, just late enough that Charles would have let his guard down. She wouldn't wear anything dramatic, just a beige sweater, jeans, flats. A face that didn't scare anyone. If he answered the door, she would step inside. 1 step, 1 moment, 1 shot. Then, maybe 2. She wouldn't run, wouldn't scream. She would sit on the couch, wait for the police, leave the report on the table with a sticky note that read, "He used me to get here." That night, Claire wrote a short letter to her son, Mark. She didn't explain everything, just enough. "I'm sorry this world is so cruel to soft hearts. I tried to be better. I really did. But this broke me. I hope one day you'll understand that I died long before the gun ever went off." She folded the letter, placed it inside her purse next to the scarf-wrapped weapon, and zipped it shut. The next morning the sun rose clear and sharp over Atlanta. Claire drove the same quiet route, past the same bakery, nodded at the same joggers. She parked half a block away from Ashley's townhouse. At 8:12 a.m., Ashley pulled out of the driveway in her white Tesla and drove off toward the city. At 8:58 a.m., Claire stepped out of the car and began walking toward the door. No hesitation, no trembling, just silence, like revenge should be. The sound of her flats against the pavement was gentle, rhythmic. Each step forward pulled Claire deeper into the calmest state she had ever known. There was no panic in her chest, only purpose. She reached the townhouse and stood at the front door. Her reflection in the glass panel showed a composed woman, gray hair brushed, beige sweater neat, lips pursed in thought. The purse at her side looked ordinary. Inside, it wasn't. She rang the doorbell. A pause, then footsteps. Claire's pulse slowed. Her hand slid into the purse and rested on the scarf-wrapped grip of the gun. The door opened. Charles appeared, shirtless, groggy, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His face froze the moment he saw her. "Claire?" She said nothing. His eyes darted behind her, then to her purse. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stepping back instinctively. "I just wanted to see you," she said softly. "One last time." He hesitated, then let her in, out of pride or stupidity, or maybe a sliver of guilt. She stepped inside. It smelled like cologne and lavender detergent. She noticed a pink robe on the couch. Ashley's. Claire walked slowly, deliberately, to the center of the living room. She turned to face him. "You never loved me," she said. "You used me, lied to me, let me believe I was building something with you while you were waiting for her." Charles shifted, uneasy. "Claire, I told you I was grateful." "Grateful?" Her voice didn't rise. "You kissed me, slept under my roof, let me feed you, clothe you." "Oh." "Sponsor you. You made me believe I had a place in your life. I didn't force you to do anything," he said, hands out now, defensive. "You wanted to help. You were lonely. Don't twist it." Claire stepped closer. "You're right. I was lonely, and you found me at the exact right moment, and you made me feel loved, so you could buy yourself a new life." Her hand slid into the purse. Charles's expression changed instantly. "Claire, wait." But she already had it. The gun emerged smoothly, no trembling in her hand. He froze. "Put it down," he said quietly, trying to maintain control. "We don't have to do this." She smiled, a small, sad thing. "I know." She fired once. The shot echoed through the living room, a violent crack that shattered everything between them. Charles collapsed to his knees, then onto the rug, one hand pressed against his chest, eyes wide with disbelief. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Claire stood still. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She placed the gun gently on the coffee table, sat down in the armchair across from his body, and pulled out the manila envelope. She placed it beside the gun. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out the letter to her son, and laid it on top. Outside, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Life moved on. Inside, everything had stopped. When the police arrived 23 minutes later, Claire raised her hands without a word. She didn't resist, didn't explain. There was nothing left to say. The headlines were immediate and brutal. Retired Charleston nurse kills Nigerian lover in Atlanta townhouse. Visa love affair turns deadly. Romance scam ends in blood. Claire Simmons became national news for a week. The story had all the ingredients the media craved. An older, lonely white woman, a young, charming African man, money, betrayal, murder. She was tried quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Her confession, her calm demeanor, the letter to her son, the gun, every detail sealed her fate. She didn't fight it. In court, she never cried. She answered the prosecution's questions simply and without embellishment. "Yes, I paid for his visa. Yes, I bought him clothes. Yes, I knew he had used me by the time I pulled the trigger. No, I don't regret it." The judge called her actions cold and deliberate. The prosecutor called her a cautionary tale. Claire was sentenced to 35 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 25. She didn't flinch. Her son, Mark, didn't attend the trial, but he sent a letter to the court that was read aloud before sentencing. I don't condone what my mother did, but I know what it feels like to call someone who doesn't answer, to give and be left empty. My mother spent her life healing others. She gave too much for too long. Charles took everything she had left. What came after wasn't justice, but it wasn't madness either. The courtroom was silent when it ended. Ashley Carter sold the townhouse within 3 months. She told reporters she was shocked and devastated, and claimed she had no idea Charles had used another woman to enter the country. Her social media was deleted shortly after. Claire now lives in a women's prison just outside Macon, Georgia. She is polite, quiet, keeps mostly to herself. She doesn't speak about Charles. She doesn't take visitors. But once a month her son sends a card with a single line, "I still love you, even if the world won't." She keeps them in a shoebox under her cot. She never opens them, but she never throws them away. And sometimes, just before lights out, she lies in the dark and whispers his name, not Charles's, Mark's, because the only piece of love that didn't lie was the one that still writes. The end.